Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
You all know the old joke. The one that says that it was Yom Kippur once, and the rabbi approached the Aron HaKodesh, and he bowed down to the ground, saying, "Before you, God, Ribbono Shel Olam, I'm nothing." The cantor was looking on and decides to follow suit. He prostrated before the ark and said, "Before you, God, I'm nothing." Well, inspired by these sincere acts of piety, Moshe Goldstein, who was sitting 5 rows back, he came up to the bima, he kneeled down, he put his head on the floor and said, "Before you, God, what am I? I'm nothing." At which point the rabbi nudged the cantor and said, "Look who thinks he's nothing." You know, it's an old joke. Yom Kippur, indeed the entire Yamim Noraim, are a time for humility, anavut. Not the false modesty of the joke, but true humility. In his book, Everyday Holiness, Alan Marinis explains, being humble doesn't mean being a nobody. It just means being no more than a somebody than you ought to be. The humility instilled on these Yamim Noraim, they grow out of two feelings: feeling small and feeling remorse. On Rosh Hashanah, we celebrate the creation of the world. We look out over the vastness of the universe. We look back eons to the dawn of time, and we cannot help but feel small and insignificant, and we bow before the Creator of all. On Yom Kippur, our humility is born out of remorse. Ashamnu, bagadnu. Over and over we enumerate our transgressions. We confess our wrongdoings and we ask forgiveness from God. We swallow our pride. We admit our guilt and we ask forgiveness of the people we've wronged. Talk about humbly. There's value in feeling small. It puts hubris in check. There's value in feeling remorse. When we've gone astray, it prompts a course correction and offers the possibility of renewal. But sometimes we are moved to say, "I'm nothing," not out of healthy humility, but because we've been told over and over again, "You're nothing. You're worthless. You're worse than nothing." I imagine that is the feeling of someone who has been abused. For example, abused by a parent or a partner. After being told over and over again, "You're nothing," they may begin to believe it about themselves. And this is my concern for our Jewish community. Centuries of pogroms and persecutions have left Jews feeling abused, scarred by generational trauma. This past year, physical attacks on Israel and on Jews in the diaspora, followed by condemnation by the World Court and the Court of Public Opinion, opened up that festering wound. Talk about abuse. It has led some to feeling frightened, insecure, or defensive. Frightened. When people charge Israel with committing genocide and say that Jews who support Israel are therefore complicit, the real-life implication is that Israel and those Jews don't deserve to exist. Not surprisingly, as anti-Semitic rhetoric and incidents have increased across the world, we've seen Jews tuck in their Jewish stars and become more hesitant to publicly acknowledge their Jewish identity. Insecure. It's not just about physical security. If I internalize the world's judgment, "You're nothing," and am beset by my own questions and doubts, then I might ask myself, well, why should I continue to exist? Do I even want to be part of a people that is morally corrupt? Today, the complexities of Israeli politics, global criticism, and internal communal debates are challenging people's own sense of identity and their feelings of belonging. Lastly, defensive. When one is constantly told, "You failed, you're nothing," it hurts. It stings. And some respond by putting up their defenses and saying, I did not, I am not. Even if there is some truth to the criticism, they reject it, they deny it, or worse, they lash out. In the process, they avoid taking responsibility for their missteps and they continue to inflict harm. Today we see some Jews and Israelis adopt this attitude. They say, Israel can do no wrong. Any critique must be suspect because the world, is just out to get us. Now we might say that the best response to being told you're nothing is defiance. I'll show you. And listen, I'm all in favor of giving the finger to Hamas. And indeed, it has been encouraging this past year to see more people become more engaged in the Jewish community and more comfortable wearing their Judaism on the sleeve. But defiance is born out of a response to haters rather than out of love for Judaism. So instead, I want to return to that Musar concept of anavut and suggest that the best response is a healthy measure, a midah, a healthy measure of pride, built on dignity, self-respect, and knowledge without being defensive or arrogant. This is the pride that we need now, and our liturgy points the way. The first century Rabbi Yochanan composed a prayer for Ne'ilah, but it was so beloved and it contained such an important message, it was selected not just to close out Yom Kippur, but to begin each and every morning. This short confessional balances the feeling of I'm nothing with reasons why, hey, I'm something. Ribono kol haolam, master of the world, ma anachnu, mechayenu, ma tzikatenu, ma kochenu, ma gvuratenu. What are we? What is our life? What is our righteousness? What is our might and our strength? Compared to you, God, the powerful are nothing, the famous are insignificant, and the wise lack wisdom. You can hear in this first half of the prayer, God, you're so great, and I'm so small. It begins with humility, with a check on haughtiness and conceit, and on power. Lest I develop a feeling of inadequacy, though, the prayer continues, Aval anachnu ancha b'nei bereitecha. We are your people. We are the descendants of your beloved Abraham, to whom you made a pledge on Har Moriah. We're heirs of Isaac, who is bound on the altar, and we are Jacob, whom you named Yisrael and Yeshurun. The second half of the prayer says, wait a minute, I'm something. You chose us to be partners in your covenant, and it offers three sources that one can draw on to develop a healthy sense of pride. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Avraham. In the Torah, Abraham, as you know, is the father of the Jewish people, and he's called Ha'ivri, which indicates that he stood out and that he stood alone. We take pride being part of this age-old people, and we take comfort, as the prayer says, that God made a pledge to Abraham and to his descendants to be their God. When you feel like nothing, and when you feel isolated, how important is it to feel the embrace of community? How empowering is it to know that community needs you and that you have something to contribute to community? And how encouraging is it when someone stands by you and says, I believe in you. I'm here for you. Next is Isaac. Bound on the altar, Isaac endured unimaginable fear. He survived, but surely he was wounded. Today we'd probably recommend therapy. But the rabbis of the Midrash had a different idea. They said that Isaac left Har Moriah and he went to study Torah in the yeshiva of Shem and Ever. Isaac understood that when you feel and are treated like nothing, it's important to take time for self-reflection and to learn and understand, Ma anachnu ma chastenu, who am I? Where do I come from? What do I stand for? Finally, Jacob. Now recall that Jacob in his youth, as his name Yaakov implied, he was a bit crooked. He deceived his father, he stole from his brother. What happened? He wrestled with his conscience. He realized his wrongs and he made amends with his brother. In the process, Yaakov received a new name, Yisrael, which means one who wrestles with themselves, with right and wrong, and one who wrestles with God. But note that in this prayer, you hear that Jacob acquired still yet an additional name, Yeshurun, from the word Yashar. Jacob, the crooked one, got straightened out. We see in Jacob someone who, yes, made mistakes, but who nevertheless became our patriarch, the very one for whom the Jewish people is named. From Jacob, we learn to say, though I might fail, I can fix. Though I got it wrong, I can grow. And we're reminded, you don't have to be perfect to be a somebody. These are the building blocks for a healthy form of Jewish pride. From Abraham, we learn the importance of community and of allies. From Isaac, the importance of learning, and from Jacob, the value of wrestling. It's a message for our individual lives, and I believe that it is a model we can apply in our relationship with Israel. Because the world increasingly views Israel in 3D, delegitimize, demonize, and double standards. We must respond with our own threesome, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who showed us how to be proud without being arrogant, how to be honest without being so self-deprecating, and how to defend without being defensive. Avraham. Following October 7th, many Jews felt abandoned by allies that they had trusted, admired, and with whom they had worked. In place of comfort, there was silence, or worse, condemnation. But we're not alone. It's one of the things that makes this different from the 1930s. We found strength in being together as community, and we came to understand who stands by us in government, in other faith communities, and in friends, and I'd like to think in God. In the years to come, we must continue to strengthen our community and to cultivate allies among neighbors and elected officials who will stand by us as Jews and who stand by Israel. Isaac. Like Isaac, we have to learn. We have to learn our own story. Ma'anachnu, mechayenu. We have to understand our Jewish history, the history of Zionism and the context of today's war. Haviv Reteg Gur, an Israeli journalist, was at Harvard this past year giving a lecture when he was interrupted by protesters. After the talk, a Jewish student came up to him and said, "I can't cross the quad without them screaming, 'Zionism is colonialism.'" Reteg Gur said, "I'm sorry, that must be hard." But the student continued, "No, you don't understand. It really hurts." Reteg Gur thought to himself, "Come on, kid. I mean, Israelis your age, they're in a war. A little hurt. I mean, like, buck up." And then the student continued, What hurts is, I don't have an answer. I don't know what to say." Reteg Gur was flabbergasted and launched into a 1-minute history lesson. You don't know what to say about colonialism? Come on. I mean, 95% of Israeli Jews came as refugees with nowhere else to go. They came not from a mother country, but from 60 different countries. They came back to their indigenous land, the land that we had prayed towards for the last 2,000 years. There's no other colonialism like that. And when Reteg Gur finished, the student said, "Holy cow." Only he didn't say cow. He said, "Holy cow, now I am invincible. Now I'm invincible." During the protest, the student was insecure. He felt like nothing. But after learning our story, he felt like something. Now, you and I know that it's not that simple or that quick. Our history is complex and layered. We have to learn it from mainstream, respected sources, and we should learn the Palestinian narrative to understand their perspective. Undoubtedly, there will be parts of our history that make us uncomfortable. That's where Jacob, the wrestler, comes in. But like Isaac, learn we must. In Reteg Gur's words, when a civilization perishes, one condition may always be found. They forgot where they came from, and they lost sight of what brought them along. So we have to learn our story. It won't take away from the Palestinian tragedy that sadly we see continuing to unfold before us, but it will enable us, he says, to see the larger human story. And if we know our story, we are invincible. When it comes to learning, I highly recommend following Israeli sources and not just those filtered through our American news outlets. A good place to start is by reading the Times of Israel online, downloading their daily briefings, following Rete Gor's posts, or listening to the thoughtful debates on the podcast For Heaven's Sake, produced by the Shalom Hartman Institute. Finally, Yaakov. Our father Jacob was not perfect. No one is. So too, of course, Israel is not perfect. No government, no army, no country is. And to claim otherwise is not only untrue, it is un-Jewish. Where Israel is falling short of our shared vision of the Jewish state, we should acknowledge her wrongs. Loving Israel unconditionally does not mean loving her uncritically. Just ask the tens of thousands of protesters in the streets of Tel Aviv every Saturday night. It means loving her in the good times and the bad times, through our disagreements and through our disappointments. Tshuva is about acknowledging and addressing our shortcomings. And we expect it of ourselves, not just on Yom Kippur, but all year round. Because that's what it means to be Yisrael, one who wrestles with their conscience. Because that's what it means to be Yeshurun, one who seeks the path of righteousness and justice. Chavarim, in our individual lives and in the life of our nation, there's a value in the humility that comes with saying, compared to you, God, I am nothing. And there's value in saying with pride, I am a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. But pride should not just remain a feeling, a list of startup nation tech companies, or a song, Am Yisrael, Chai, Am Yisrael, Chai. It must be put into action. It must be lived in our commitment to community, to Torah, and to mitzvot. Our pride should be demonstrated in our tzedakah, in our advocacy, in our learning Ivrit, and much, much more. Ribon kol ha'olam, Master of the universe. Ma anachnu mechayenu. What are we? What is our life? Anachnu ancha b'nei bereitecha. We are your people, God, partners to your covenant. And then the prayer continues. Lefikach. Therefore it is our duty to thank you and to praise you, saying, how good is our portion, how pleasant is our lot, how beautiful is our heritage. Ashrenu ma tov chelkenu ma na'im goralenu. Indeed it is. Judaism is beautiful, it's holy, it's wise, it's nuanced, it's challenging, and it's encouraging. It teaches us to be proud and to be humble, to be outraged and to be upright, to be strong, but to be sympathetic, to be resolute and to be humane, to be on guard and to be grateful. And so at the dawn of 5785 we pray, thank you, God. Thank you for our ancestors who inspire me, our community that embraces me, my friends that stand by me, the Torah and teachers who guide me, my conscience that challenge me, for my failures that test, strengthen, and improve me. And thank you for Israel, our nation, our land, our people, that fill me with pride. Praised are you, God, who made me of the people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani Yisrael. Amen.
Amen.
To you.